Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Lily, and I'm on the marketing team here at Velosio. I'm so excited to have you all here for today's webinar to discover why forward-thinking businesses are moving from Salesforce to D365 sales. It's going to be a great session. Before we get started, I do need to quickly cover a few housekeeping details. First, you may have noticed that you're currently on mute, but don't worry, you can still interact with us by submitting any questions using the question box located on the GoToWebinar panel. If you happen to run into any technical issues during the session, feel free to use that same question box and we'll assist you as soon as possible. We'll try our best to address any questions that you may have during the presentation, but if we run out of time, don't worry, our team will follow up with you via email, or you can connect with your Velosio account manager for further details. All right, let's get started. I'm excited to introduce Jason Wheathorn from Velosio, who will be leading today's session. Thanks for joining this session. I'll let you take it away, thanks for joining us, Jason. I'll let you take it away from here.
Thanks, Lily, and welcome everybody. Appreciate everybody's time today and joining us. I truly enjoy these opportunities to talk with everybody. So again, appreciate that. You probably see on the screen, if you're like me, I'm anxious for spring and summer to come. And I think it also highlights kind of a theme around this topic, right? With the sea comes change day in and day out. And, we're seeing a lot of change in the market and some particular themes with regards to why customers are, what they're talking about and why customers are migrating from Salesforce over into Microsoft Dynamics CRM. There is a lot out there in terms of content. So just as a point of reference, we've built out a whole bunch of white papers, create a bunch of blogs. We've also got some tools on hand that allows us to quickly assess a Salesforce environment and rapidly migrate customers over from Salesforce over to Microsoft Dynamics CRM. So as you're kind of digesting this, again, this isn't about hitting all the points, but if you're interested in learning more, as Lily mentioned, you've got some questions and you want to talk to an expert, you want to learn about maybe something specific around what's going on in your organization and talk, about that, we're happy to do so. We'll mention that again at the end of this, and we'll go from there. So there's really four themes that I'm going to kind of talk to you about that we are seeing, pretty standard. It's usually a combination or maybe all of these things when we're talking with a particular client or even a prospect that Microsoft's bringing us into with regards to why the move, why are we considering it, why we're talking about that, etc. So that's data first strategy, right? This idea of low code, no code approach. Obviously AI, which is not really a new topic and nothing new from a Microsoft perspective, but I think we're all hearing a lot this past year around Copilot. And then just traditionally how people work, right? So we're going to talk about those a little bit more detail, and hopefully this is informational and of value to folks, right? So let's talk a little bit about data first strategy and the approach that Microsoft's been taking versus Salesforce is couldn't be more night and day with regards to the approach from that. Microsoft has, you'll hear me say this actually repeatedly kind of throughout the session today, where Microsoft has been really heavily invested over the last 10 plus years in this roadmap that certainly they've been kind of course correcting, tightening up over here. Where do we want to kind of sharpen up our pencils and focus maybe a little bit more based upon where the market's going? But directionally, right, as a tech company, right, these guys are, they've really foundationally have set their stage with regards to how they're thinking and operating. And that really starts with data, right? And Microsoft brings a whole slew of capabilities around data and really the framework around that, right? Two things that I'll call out that will that I want to kind of draw a comparison around is the data warehouse, right? When we think about that, and the one lake and what that kind of looks like future state for Microsoft, because I think that would be really helpful for everybody. So when we talk about the data warehouse, in Microsoft's world, what they're really trying to do, and it's been really table stakes for them, right, is thinking about, listen, if I'm deploying, an ERP like Business Central or F&O on the Microsoft side, or I'm looking at Microsoft CRM, and within that platform, I've got various applications, right? Things like, accounts and contacts, leads, opportunities, just to mention a couple of those kind of tables. From that, right, no matter if you start with marketing and then you go over to sales, or you're deploying sales, but now you're connecting over to an ERP from the Microsoft side, it's all using the same data model. And that's really significant, right? I'm not recreating another, what almost Salesforce likes to consider a one lake, or a data warehouse, in the sense of where they've got multiple schemas set up, where they're taking really snapshots and duplicate efforts around your data, right? Let me say that again. Microsoft's got a platform, right, where it's a one common data model, but Salesforce, right, has to create multiple, right, iterations of your data to really kind of create that same thing. And from that drives costs up, but it also creates inefficiencies in terms of how you think around integration work, how you think about how data comes together and flows. So in the CRM world, right, you think about you've got a customer who has their end customer, and you've got that what I would call is that customer journey, right? Marketing, sales, service operations, no matter where you are in that customer journey, you really want that seamless flow of data, and not feel like you have to actually piecemeal those things and being charged extra for that. So that's really significant in terms of how they think about that, and it helps really set that framework. So when we think about, and we talk about later on around AI and how people work, as an example, all this is a seamless interaction around your data, right? You got to pull in the pull in those things around that data science, that data engineering, whether you're reporting around sales operational data or your financial data. Regardless of all of that, right? We've got to have a common data model, right, that drives all of that. So that's pretty significant in terms of how they've been thinking about this for years and where they continue to drive that. The second piece there is this one lake model, and there's been a lot of conversation about it. But if you've been following Microsoft a little bit, here's something that to me, I think is just absolutely fascinating, that I don't think people are talking about enough, but it's a game changer in terms of how we think about, whether you're on the IT side or you're a business leader and you're thinking about a digital transformation, or you're thinking about even just a smaller lift and shift around migrating from Salesforce over to Microsoft CRM. The One Lake sets up for a future state that I think is, like I said, it changes the mindset. So instead of having your data that resides in CRM, your data that resides in F&O, your data that resides in these different pockets, you can have your data just reside in one lake. And when you do that, right now, it becomes more application agnostic, right? And allows you to have the flexibility around that. So two things around that. One is if you look at what Microsoft just released in 2024 around the digital contact center, here that's database agnostic, right? It's really more about putting that against your data, whether that's Oracle, OneLake, et cetera. And if you listen kind of to what Microsoft is saying around like the custom agents, right? The near future is that you think about these custom agents that are now attaching to the one lake, as opposed to I have to rebuild all of these applications around there. It gives you a sense of flexibility, lower cost solutions, so that you can kind of drive that into your model, and make sure that you're servicing your customers the right way. So foundationally, right, You think about from a bigger picture, Microsoft's really trying to embed in the framework, in the DNA, right, of its roadmap, how data can be organized and accessed, and you get charged once for it, not multiple times, right? You get one place and allows you to just access and do the things that you need to do around your data. The second thing I want to kind of talk about, and we're seeing this a lot. We were just talking with a customer. They just signed with us about a month ago. And this idea of low code, no code approach, you know, so today, right? And we're migrating them off of Salesforce. Today they use Salesforce. They also have a couple other legacy, applications. And one of their biggest struggles is that, their business is in hyper growth and they're constantly have to evolve their business processes, how their teams, whether they're in sales operations, right, or they're in service operations, how they're interacting with their customers. And that for them, it just feels like that's almost an evolving kind of in and out the door process that happens almost monthly. But today they feel like with some of these legacy applications in Salesforce, when you're talking about changing processes, adding fields, how we need to think about reporting, that those things become a significant and heavy lift for them. And so for them, they were really kind of curious about how Microsoft works behind, under the covers, right? I think we've all kind of heard the concept. You've got Microsoft CRM, but you also have the Power Platform. Those are really kind of interchangeable in terms of that low code, no code approach and the configuration and how that's all set up there, right? And so walking through that with them, and they could see how that actually works, how easy it is that you could take someone who doesn't have any coding, it's not a developer, doesn't have to be someone that, you have to go out in the market and find that you have to pay $200,000 for. These can be lower cost resources that, might be like a business analyst, for example, that can get in there and you can give them some training and they can easily start helping to be an admin, help to kind of manage and interact with the business and kind of manage that day in and day out. That's just, that story really resonated for this particular customer. And again, we're seeing this as a continued theme is how to make it easy. Another example of that is you take a look at some of the, I'll call it data migration and integration tools and just kind of comparing, Salesforce and Microsoft. So a lot of times we're hearing that Salesforce is, suggesting and recommending some pretty expensive and complicated tools to do integration, but they're almost kind of like one-trick ponies. Okay, you can buy this third-party tool. It's going to be costly to maintain. You're going to need some pretty heavy, resources to be able to manage to that. And it can really only just do that integration. So when we think again back to this low code platform, right, that kind of goes across, right, what Microsoft is providing in terms of capabilities, not just with Power BI and how reports can be generated, but also Power Automate. I mean, Power Automate has got a lot of capabilities built in where I can do data migration, I can do integration, it's got RPA in there, and then you've got the virtual agents that really give you a host of AI and automation capabilities that allows you to accomplish a bunch of different things. As an example, we were working with a manufacturer and these guys were quoting out of CRM. They were doing about 500 quotes about every week. And they had 3 people and their jobs was full time. This is all they did is that when those quotes came back in via an email with the PDF signed and the customer then with embedded in the email, what they would do is they'd had some additional information that was being asked, right, by this manufacturer. These people, they would open up that Outlook email, they would open up that PDF, and they would go and start doing data entry, right, into CRM and into EPR, into their F&O, so their and from there that's going to trigger off, right, all the invoicing, the order processing, all that stuff to the account reps, the thank you letters to the customers. It triggered off a whole bunch of different things. But the point is that that was all a very manual process, right? And so we were able to take Power Automate, virtual agents, and completely automate that 100%. Those three people then were able to be pushed over so that they could focus on customer facing engagement activities that further bolstered up that NPS score and just that overall customer experience that their customers were asking for to begin with. So you can really have a complete change in terms of how you think around operations that allows you to not only save costs, but also help really accelerate revenue. Because if you're driving amazing experiences, right, those revenue opportunities are only going to increase for you, right? So low code, no code, significant opportunity there. And again, just another theme that we're seeing why that we're shifting customers, why we're seeing companies asking, hey, listen, what does Microsoft provide? And it seems to be the talking points in terms of here are the reasons why we're migrating over. The next one is AI and Copilot. Now, Microsoft's been talking about AI for years now, right? You know, you've had the idea of machine learning, right? You've had the idea embedded within Microsoft CRM where there's been all kinds of AI capabilities, right? Whether it's today things like advanced forecasting, sequencing, right, in terms of how a seller can go off and in a very specific manner and activity go off and be guided in terms of how they need to communicate and engage with their customers, right? And that can apply to customer service as well. But so there's a whole host of those capabilities, right? But again, embedding kind of like that framework, that DNA, Microsoft's trying to embed all of these AI capabilities, whether it's in the productivity side of things, like Outlook, PowerPoint, Excel, to all the business applications. So it's really kind of shifting that business today. I was talking with someone just last week, right? And they were talking about their AI efforts with regards to their organization. And, you know, one of the things that came up was they were talking about, you know, the user adoption and where they're seeing success and where they're having some challenges. But it really is a shift from someone's day in the life. Today, I'm doing it this way, right? That I've been used to doing maybe for the last couple of years to, depending upon that person's career, maybe it's been a lifetime for them that they're doing certain things the same way for so long. To now of tomorrow, which is now my day in a life, can really shift in terms of how I think, operate, how I'm able to access data and those insights to how I can go off and engage my customers, right? So that whole kind of change management process embedded in terms of that culture and how we're educating and supporting our staff, our boots on the ground, right? Regardless of the role that they're playing, can be very, very significant, right? And those trends usually, right, we kind of categorize that in kind of three different areas, right? How to personalize those experiences. And I don't know about you, but anytime I'm being serviced, like I'm reaching out to someone, whether I need help supporting, so it's a customer service, whether I'm looking around some new product or service, especially for a company I've already worked for or I've worked with, right? I've purchased, I've spent money. I want them, I want to feel like they know me, like they understand my habits, they understand what I'm interested in. They can almost kind of anticipate. And so really these next level AI capabilities helps you do that, right? You know, versus on the other side, kind of unleashing that creativity and productivity, right? The amount of time that our people spend doing manual entry, spending to find data, spending researching and trying to understand who this customer is and what they mean to our organization, and are there any green flags or red flags that I need to be aware of before I engage, whether again I'm trying to sell them something, whether I'm trying to help support something there. it's just, it's amazing how much time we're taking to figure that stuff out, right? So if we can give time back, right, even if it's just a couple hours, right, to a day back in a particular every week, that's significant. If you look at your Salesforce and you've got, 5 people, or if you've got 150 people, whether they're inside or outside sellers, and now you're giving them anywhere from 2 to 8 hours a day back a week, I mean, that could be really impactful. Act in the moment insights. And I was kind of alluding to this a little bit, right, in terms of people trying to search for this data, but it really is, think about it as AI as being that kind of coach on that virtual coach on that person's shoulder, right? That I can quickly access that data. I can quickly, AI can then quickly help that person, right? Say, hey, listen, here's what you ought to be thinking about, right? And the last call that they were talking with one of our business development folks within the sales organization, we could tell that they weren't happy about this, or this is where you could tell from their voice that there was, from a sentiment perspective, that this is where they really got excited. Provide those insights, provide the tools and the information right at your fingertips so that you can go off and engage and do the things that really are impactful, that are really going to resonate, right? And those are critical moments, right? So productivity, acting in the moment because you've got the right insights and the data and the things that are telling you this is how you ought to engage, and really trying to change that from very kind of generic to, hey, I'm going to personalize this experience and make you feel special, are the key themes that really kind of help drive what we're doing there. When we're talking about productivity, specifically around sellers, and we think about our conversations that we've had with our customers around, again, why moving from Salesforce over into Microsoft in the AI space, right? I mean, the number one job of a seller is to be a problem solver, right? And so if they can't be in front of their prospects, their customers, trying to understand what's going on there and what problems we can solve for you, right, then they're spending more time, right, really focused on doing things like, again, doing the mat or the manual data entry, right? They're looking and searching for data, and again, that stops us. That doesn't allow us to really focus on those things, right? So we want to give that time back, right? And there's so much capability there, right? Whether it's summarizing emails, summarizing, a particular meeting and those action items that needs to happen and how that kind of can spread around, right? So those are things that are really, really critical for us. With Copilot, right, that allows us to generate, emails a lot quicker, right? I don't have to think about that. I can ask for summaries. I see an email come in from my customer, and now I can ask AI to kind of help respond. This customer is looking for information around a particular product or service. AI can help pull that information aside without me really spending a lot of time thinking about it. I want to proofread that and then get that out from that perspective, right? A lot of different use cases. So this is just kind of skimming the top a little bit about what we have and what we can do. But at the end of the day, the results really speak for themselves. And we're interviewing our customers, right? I know Microsoft's doing their kind of own research, and now you got Forrester and Gartner, right, in the industry kind of taking a look. But the outcomes are pretty significant, right? 90 minutes per week saved for the average seller, decrease at 52% decrease in the number of clicks, right? To identify and add a new CRM contact, right? And it goes on and on and on. So when you start adding this up, it really has an impact, like I said, to really shift what's that day in the life and what's the expectations. And these sellers, if I don't think it matters whether you're in the healthcare, you're in manufacturing, you're in ProServe. I think there's this expectation as we've gone into 2025 where in the selling organization, right, there is a high demand and high expectation that they're going to deliver more than ever before. And so the best way that we can support them is really give them these tools that make their job seamless, right? I mean, that's kind of the art and science of all this technology. It's all great, but we really want that technology and the capabilities here to kind of work behind the scenes so that our heroes, our people that are in front of our customers can go off and do the right things. Right, and that kind of goes back. Now this kind of is a nice jumping point around like how do people work, right? And so from that, we think about, I always like to think about customers' expectations. And for me, I think, this is so, what I'm showing here is just a glimpse, I think, of how organizations, how people, how individuals are really thinking. I would ask and challenge all of us to just kind of think about us as a consumer. How want to be served? What kind of experiences do we expect, right? And I think we probably would resonate, and these are just a couple of the stats, but how we'd resonate with some of this stuff. I was amazed at that bottom right corner one where over 30% who love a brand would walk away from just one bad experience. So, you just think about what that means for your organization, and can we really afford any of that? Probably not. So because those expectations are higher, right, we need to make sure that we're providing really a set of capabilities that brings it all together. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I kind of talk about, the Microsoft's roadmap. And I really believe in this, right? I've been looking, I've been part of this process with Microsoft for probably 20 plus years. Over the last 10 years, it's just been, feels like hyper transformational for Microsoft and what they've been able to do for their customers, right? But again, you got the productivity tools, you've got all these, business applications and process and data, you've got all the low code, no code stuff embedded in the DNA is all this AI capability to drive that. And so as a seller, when you're thinking about how to move from, hey, again, why to move from Salesforce over to Microsoft, if I bring all those capabilities together, right, what I can do from a PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook to what I'm doing over in CRM, and now again, I'm changing that landscape. I'm changing the day in the life of that, right? A year ago, as an example, if I was working with a prospect and my counterpart on the sales team, we'd understand what's going on, understand some of the requirements, understand some of those pain points, what we're trying to do, etc. And then, all right, here's what our proposal is, and we would spend hours, right? Could be just a handful of hours, maybe it's up to a full week where we're developing a PowerPoint to say, here's a proposal, here's our kind of our approach, here's the scope, here's those risks and how we're going to mitigate that, etc. Well, now, right, we have CRM, we've got Office, we've got AI Copilot all embedded in there. We can then have AI help create and automate a lot of that PowerPoint. So again, I go from a week to hours to, maybe just minutes where I can go off and develop a proposal. Now I'm focused, right? Now I have more time to go off and help the customer solve problems, to help see how we can transform our customers' experiences with us, et cetera. So just a different mindset there. But again, it's pulling all that stuff together. And, Microsoft, I heard a Microsoft rep say this, and I would agree, right? They're not a Salesforce organization, right? They're not going off. You don't know Microsoft as being great at marketing their stuff, at selling their stuff, right? We see all the commercials for Salesforce, et cetera. But they're really a tech company. They're really just a bunch of geeks that are working through that and making sure that they are providing the capabilities that can really drive that forward. And this evolution that's been taking place, I said over the last 10 years, you just look at this. I start going back now 10 years ago to like 5 years ago to 3 years ago to a year ago. And it's been monumental. And I think that's why industry leaders, have started to recognize them. That's why we can look at outcomes that we know, hey, listen, we've got costs that are transparent and sustainable, right? Because we've got a data model, right, that doesn't require duplicating data in different sources, right, that we're going to be charged around. We know that we're going to get those productivity tools and the things that are going to really drive that kind of stuff around accelerating revenue, right? Number one, Microsoft number one for innovation, right? And they're at the top of the quadrant, right next to Salesforce, really for sales automation platforms. 5, 7 years ago, people kind of laughed at that, but I mean, this just demonstrates how Microsoft's commitment to innovation has really kind of changed the landscape for everybody for the better there. And you look at this, right? 97% of the Fortune 500 companies use Power Platform. They're number one in low code, no code platform. And there's just a lot of companies out there, a lot of brands I'm sure you recognize on this screen that are really taking advantage of what Microsoft's bringing and have, either chose out of the gates or have migrated right from Salesforce over into Microsoft Dynamics CRM, right? So as I kind of kicked off and I started the call earlier, right? We've written up a bunch of white papers and blogs. We've got some articles around some feature comparisons, etc. But we've got experts who lived and breathed this, right? There's a bunch of us that have obviously we have sold, we have been a user, we have migrated off of Salesforce. There is a lot of expertise there that I encourage. If you want to learn more about what's going on in the market, you want to talk a little bit more about those four themes or some of the other things and other reasons why people are looking to migrate from Salesforce over to Microsoft, or you're just wanting to say, hey, I'm just kind of curious what that would look like for our organization, then just reach out to one of our experts. We're here to help, kind of talk about that and kind of educate so you can kind of see for yourself, right? Even giving you guys like a free trial, right? So you can get hands-on experience around some of this stuff. I think you guys would turn around and say, hey, this is pretty cool stuff that Microsoft's doing. So again, appreciate everyone's time and thanks for taking a little bit an opportunity with us today. Appreciate it. Lily, back to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Jason. That was great. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. We appreciate your time. Before we head out, I do want to remind you to keep an eye on your inbox for a follow-up email, which will include a link to the webinar recording, as well as any links to assets that may be beneficial for you. And with that, we'll sign off. Have a great day, everyone.